to Wake the Bear Radio with your host, Brandon Johnson, Chris Hurst, and Ron Powers. All right. That's another Wake the Bear Radio, and we're excited tonight because it's going to be a special night tonight. A lot of things happening. So we'll get to that. So how's your week? I haven't seen you in at least a week there. So
I've had a pretty busy week. I just yesterday I got a new granddaughter. So I have 6 grandchildren now, and it just the emotions of fresh life flooded me as I looked at her little picture, and I just heard the blessings my son spoke and named her, and her name is Charlotte Grace Hurst. And it's like double grace because Charlotte is like to cherish, to be graced. So it's a double grace. And I think that's really significant for 2024, that in all the things that we know there's shaking, there's going to be some hard times, but we have double portions of grace. And I remembered it was like a giant flood of emotions when I thought, oh, every day I go and fight. It's not for me. It's not even for America per se, like America's this undefinable thing. It's for the people. It's for my children. It's for the legacy. It's for the generations. It's to do my part as a person in my generation, just like the ones in the generations before have done their part to fight for freedom.
you're sounding like a grandmama bear.
I am.
That's called our posterity. Which
Yeah.
is an excellent long-term vision. Protect the
Well,
country.
speaking of grandmama bear, we have a grand mama bear. I call her a West Coast heavy hitter mama bear. She's out there on the airwaves, and so proud of her. And so it's Kristen Hurley. And Kristen Hurley, the first time I had heard you, we were looking into getting onto that station, KSCO, which is the largest West Coast privately owned AM radio station. And it's in the heart of a very liberal area, and it's a very conservative. And so I started listening during the day, and I heard this lady, Kristen Hurley, and I thought, oh, she must be a national radio personality, because, I mean, it was flawless. I mean, it was just, she had all kinds of articulation, lots of news stories. People would call in, and she just was on the fly, interacting just really well. And I thought, this must be one of those, just those national radio hosts. And then I found out you were just local at the time. And it was, I was impressed. I was blown away. I'm like, wow, she's actually at the station. She's not piped in from, the mega corporations. So welcome on Wake the Bear Radio.
I love it that we have closely named our shows, same kind of concept. Yeah, my show is called Mama Bears Radio. And I think, Ron, when you were first tuning in back in the hot and heavy Gavin Newsom recall days, where I was really like with my claws out, as I say. So I was probably very passionate. I love doing live radio. I love AM radio, broadcast radio. To me, it's like the ultimate in free, uncensored speech, right? Your words are out on the airwaves. Very old fashioned kind of thing. Anyway, so I enjoy doing the show. I do talk about all sorts of protect the family, preservation of the family, parents' rights, anything about raising children in this crazy world. Of course, I do, topics, current events, daily politics kind of thing. But it's kind of the same thing that Chris was saying, is like, I have children to bequeath the nation to. We all do. And it's my personal responsibility to speak about things, say what needs to be said, and engage the public. So anyways, Mama Bears Radio Wednesdays live on KSCO in Santa Cruz.
Well, it's definitely a privilege and an honor to have you. So we're definitely excited about that. Excited to hear what you have. It's been Brandon's out, by the way. He's out taking care of kind of maybe an auto emergency or family auto emergency. We'll see. He may jump on at the end of the end of the show, but it is definitely an honor to have you, and we look forward to hearing. You've always been in the trenches as far as the latest bill coming out, warning people, hey, this is a bad bill or this is a good bill, and then you do your research, and I found it's very educational just to hear. Because sometimes it's hard to find, especially two sides. So someone that's dove in, kind of analyze both, what both sides are saying on something, and kind of give us the skinny on it, and it just makes our lives a little easier, or a lot easier, to vote responsibly. So I'm sure you have a couple things maybe on your plate that you've been looking at that we're unaware of. I know we are Wake the Bear Radio, and the bear is California. So you have actually done a really good job in staying on California issues. A lot of times we talk about the world, the world's on fire here, and the war out here, and that, and more of a national. But technically, we are trying to wake the bear of California up. So, so tell us, what do you see lately that we should be aware of?
Where do you start? Well, it's a brand new legislative season starting up, right? We're just in January. So they haven't necessarily started writing and presenting and bringing forth all the bills that will be. I want to say there's something on the order of between like 2,000 and 2,500 bills presented each year in the California legislature. They're busy little bees dreaming up all sorts of ways to control us. The last couple of years have really seen some crazy, egregious ones. And so in particular, there's a leftover bill from last year that has made news in the last week or two. It's the youth football ban bill, and it is, let me look this up, AB 734. Assemblyman Kevin McCarty out of Sacramento wrote this little doozy. Apparently, this is a couple of times through. He's tried to pass this through over the years. So it made it through committee. And I was a little surprised, like, well, wait a minute, what month is it? But it's leftover from last year's legislative session. They have a time stamp on it, so it has to either get passed or not. They're still trying to push it through, even though we haven't really started this year's season. And it would ban all tackle football for anyone, I believe it's 12 and under, boys sports. And I think it's another overreach on a broad spectrum perspective. It's the state of California deciding who can do, what you can or cannot do with your children, deciding for parents to say, well, that's dangerous, so you have to stay safe. Or who knows, what it is. It's just more state control and taking the raising of your children out of parents' hands, which is, we've seen just that in spades. So take an interest in it. It made it through its little committee. Each bill, once written, goes through several committees on its path to being voted on. As we generally see, bills go into committees and there are responsible citizens and interested parties that may go and argue hours and hours and hours against a particular bill. It's bad for these reasons. We oppose it on this ground. We think it's unconstitutional. Here are all of these groups represented saying, don't pass this bill through. And what happens? I guess passed right on through. So sadly, that's the state of SAC. This one is coming through, though. It's AB 734. If anyone in particular is into youth sports and that's your thing, and this is a time to get to speak up and say no, that exercise and team sports and all of the wonderful things that go along with that is important to you and your family, give Sacramento a call. So.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yay, legislator.
Yeah,
I just can't believe it got this far. I mean, think of all the groups that would normally, the dad groups, the guy groups, the firefighters, the police, people who grew up with football, the college groups who, the Pop Warner is the feeding grounds of then the junior high, the high school, and how big, maybe not so much. I mean, it's big in California. It's really big in the Midwest, but those are scholarship potentials. So it'd be like saying to a gymnast, parents, you can't really do the vault in the because when you flip over, you might land on your head, and that's dangerous. Or it's total interference. That just
Yeah.
I can. It's difficult for me to believe that it got this far without people saying that is ridiculous. I mean, even that's a bipartisan, that is ridiculous. I mean, it's one of those kind of things that it isn't really a woke, popular type of subject matter. So it'll be interesting to watch, but I think it'd be great just to get us all writing some letters, making some calls.
Make some calls. And as I said, people call, people go and argue in committee against a particular bill, and it tends to somehow move forward. And I just want to juxtapose this. Actually, I think it's interesting because one of the bills to come out of last year was and it's now law, Gavin Newsom, man we all love to hate, signed it, that 12-year-olds, 12 must be a magic number in California, 12-year-olds now have the lawful ability to go and check themselves into a state facility with or without maybe the assistance of people in their schools or counselors or whatever, remove themselves from their homes, check into a facility without their parents' knowledge or consent. And now a 12-year-old has the lawful ability in California to basically emancipate themselves from their parents' control. And I think it's, 12 some sort of magic number where can't have the 12-year-olds, their little brains are still too soft to be playing contact sports. Oh, but they're old enough to make life-changing decisions for themselves and supersede their parents' authorities at home. So I don't know what California is thinking. Clearly not thinking.
They're not thinking.
Is that lesson. But if somebody wanted some action in Sacramento in the next week or two, follow AB 734.
So if you want to overturn the football bill, maybe what they should do is they should get a girl that thinks she's a guy and say, hey, are you taking this away so I can't play football? And then they'll be, and then they'll just go back on everything.
It's just, good reverse engineering.
It's a really creative approach.
It's kind of like if you want your Medicare covered and all that stuff, just come over the border instead. God forbid, be a veteran or something that needs medical care. You just have to come over the border.
Creative alternatives, you're thinking, the way we have to stop this state from controlling us.
All right. Yeah. Well, and then let me just, while we're on this subject of changing one's gender and participating in someone else's sports, let me just get this off my chest, speaking of Sacramento. And then I know we've got plenty of other things to talk about tonight, but Protect Kids of California Act of 2024, there's a ballot initiative going around. All you have to do is Google Protect Kids Act of California, sign it, pass it along to your friends and neighbors to sign. It's just like the recall petition where you're a registered voter, you can sign. This initiative will, let me read from it, repeal the California law that permits students to compete in female sports. This is male students in female sports, and students to be in females' locker rooms and bathrooms. Just what you were mentioning, Ron. 2, it will prohibit schools from deceiving parents about their students' gender identity crisis and stop them from secretly transitioning a child, which we all know happens. And 3, this bill will stop sex change operations and chemical castrations on minors in general in the state, which is now very lawful to do. California is first in the nation, as Gavin Newsom says, right? Come one, come all.
Yeah.
Castrate your children here. So this bill would be super important. If they get their 500,000 signatures that they need, it will be on the ballot in November, and the people of California will get to decide for themselves rather than 120 state legislators and the governor. So this is crucial. I know the polls everywhere show that parents on the very large part are just completely abhorred by the shenanigans in schools and the gender ideology, confusion, all the sex talk in schools and inappropriate grades and ages. It's just too much. And parents universally agree this is ridiculous. So this is something that we can all tangibly do. I was in the heart of the recall. It's possible to go sit outside your local Home Depot with a little table and your petitions, and inform people that this is going on. And we, the people of California, have the ability to stop it.
Do you know what the date is on how much time those petitions?
The exact date, I will have to get back to you guys on that. I don't know how much longer they have. At 500,000 signatures, that's actually not that much.
Huh.
Because we pedal in the metal, really beat that.
We're
recall.
three right
2
here.
point.
I know.
Yes, where do we
Have
sign?
you signed Ron Powers? Well, so anyone can go to I want to say the website is protectkidsca.com, or you just Google Protect Kids Initiative of California. You can download the petition yourself. You can make as many copies. There's the instruction sheets, all the details about the law, if it would become law, everything you need to know, places to donate, ways to volunteer and support them, the organization getting this done. So you can print as many petitions as you want and circulate them, get signatures, and send it in.
Sounds good.
So, yeah.
For those of you that are out of California, this may be entertaining to you to hear this, but if it passes here, then expect it, in a year or two after. So, California seems to lead the way in wackiness. And also, who knows if Gavin Newsom will be a Democrat, front runner for president if Big Mike doesn't run. So, but we know that Biden probably will not. So, this is just ammunition to understand what kind of person Gavin Newsom is. And so a lot of this has his full support. And so very concerning, very concerning.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And the jury's still out whether or not he might be a candidate on the Democratic.
Oh, he thinks he's a candidate. Believe me.
Yeah. Because he says he's not. So he must be.
Yeah. Yeah. You believe the exact opposite of everything that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And just talk to someone from California.
Yeah. We've had it.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting is that the whole, as we're getting into the caucus season, the caucuses, there's the Iowa, but the Super Tuesday, Joe Biden is not, he's supposed to have his speech. I think, Chris, you were telling me that earlier before the show, that the resident Biden was supposed to have a State of the Union very soon this month. And I think he's going to wait till after Super Tuesday. So it's like, there's just all this shuffling around, and you just go, what are they up to? What are they up to? Because everyone knows. I mean, the polls are showing it. He doesn't have a snowball's flake or snowball's chance of making it, And it was actually interesting because let me show this, but there is a poll that was, I think it came out today.
It did. I saw that poll from CNN.
Yeah. So right here. So yeah, so it was interesting. It says, do you think Biden legitimately won in 2020? And 28% said yes, and 68% said no.
Wow.
That's like 2/3.
Yeah.
So that's like a major, I don't know.
And
that's just a major.
The CNN guy saying that on air with a straight face.
It was a CNN poll, so they had to give the CNN statistics.
Butt hurt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what do you think it would be if it wasn't CNN? I bet you it'd even be higher. It could be 70 something, 80. I don't know.
Because they probably called all their listeners.
Yeah,
probably.
It's like the internal list of CNN. Contributors or something.
I mean, that is so strange, isn't it? That CNN would even put that. They'd think, let's just not put that on the news today.
Well, there's a point where all this breaks down, right? And with just strictly the border, and I've heard more and more of these very staunch Democrat voices having to just go, okay, yeah, this is a mess. Like, what are we doing? And they're having to backtrack. So I just think there's a certain limit to how much BS can actually come out of one's mouth. At some point you have to, unless you're completely Trump derangement syndrome and mentally ill, at some point with a number of these subjects and topics, you can't fool yourself.
Yeah.
And
See,
Yeah.
now if I were the opposition, and they're trying to figure out when are we going to bring in the other candidate, because Biden's not going to step out of the way, and they, as much as they pull the hook, he won't get off the stage. I would have given him the State of the Union at his regular time and just had him be such a bumbling problem that everybody would just, then they'd have more time to decide. But right now it's what, Iowa's on Central Time, aren't they? And it's 7:21 here in California, so it's almost 9:30 there. The caucuses in Iowa, for those that don't know it, the caucus, here we are in January, and we're already talking about these the presidential campaign, which is boom, boom, boom. What is it? 11 months, 10 months now.
Go by.
Yeah, 10 and a half months and counting down. So the first part of the presidential election in the primaries are the caucuses. And then we were talking about this earlier. We have New Hampshire has their primary. I believe it's a primary. I don't know anybody else who does caucuses that
I don't know either.
But we'll talk a little bit about what that is. And then there's South Carolina. So that's the third thing, all before Super Tuesday. And then Super Tuesday's March 5th. And so we have boom, 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 very quickly, these four major opportunities for candidates to see how many electorates they'll be sending to the national convention. And then finally, everybody, by the time June, California, we used to do all of our primaries in June. It's like it already had all been decided by the time we got to vote. It's like everything on the West Coast, they've already said who's going to win, and we haven't even gotten to the polls yet. But we now do our primaries in March, but some people still do them in June. So that gets ready for the Republican National Committee when they decide who their real candidate is, with all the electorals votes that they'll have. So I don't know, is electoral vote, I don't know if that's the proper term, but in the caucus.
Electors.
Thank
they're
you.
people that go.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't want to mix up with electoral
Too many
votes.
vocabulary words.
Yes, that just makes me want to twitch with January 6th. So the caucus, it's really interesting. So what the process is I wanted to share it with you because I had to look it up. And I guess Trump had to look at, his family didn't quite understand it. And I'm not sure I completely believe that. But when they started campaigning back in 2016, they weren't really clear on it either. So I don't feel so badly. I was listening to Eric Trump today in an interview, and he said, this was the first time in 2016 we kind of got the feel of the election. And we were thinking, what is this caucus really about? Because they hadn't experienced one. And it actually started at 7:00. So nothing really happens other than a lot of pomp and circumstances and people out trying to do a little last minute campaigning. So we got all the candidates. The Republicans are there. And so there are precincts in 99 counties, and in each of the precincts, they have a caucus. And basically what it is, it's a gathering of the people who are registered voters. And so they do their precinct by precinct. They go to a big gathering place, and they are literally handed out. So they're in these little neighborhood caucuses. That's what they groups. I hate to use a term to define a term, but they're in some little mini rallies. Like I live in Scotts Valley, so it'd be kind of like that we're District 5 in Santa Cruz County. It'd be like we all get down at City Hall or in the auditorium, the high school auditorium,
Mm-hmm.
and we do our little caucus. And there are 1,670 of these going on all at the same time in the 99 counties. And then they are physically handed out. The voters, registered voters, have to be 18 and older, have to show their ID, they have to actually show ID and that they're registered or they're on their list. And they have a hand ballot. And so they all mark their ballots. It's just for the presidential candidate. There's no other issue on this ballot. And then they hand them all in, and they're all collected. And in front of everybody, except for the press aren't allowed in there, which is very interesting. But there they are,
Nice.
all the registered local voters in this big auditorium. They hand count them out loud. They hand
Nice.
count the votes. So they're probably, maybe 700, 800 votes to count. Who knows? Not too much more than that, I don't think, per precinct. And then, so then they know, okay, who just won that precinct. And then it goes electronic. They go in and they electronically send the results of that precinct into the main counting area. And before they actually do the voting, they have someone who represents all the candidates. They have kind of a rally. So each candidate gets to have a representative there who says they probably have 10 minutes per candidate. And I just totally made that up. So I'm sorry.
Misinformation.
Yes.
Disinformation.
Yep. Uh-oh.
I don't know how
Mark.
much time they have, but they've got to do it, tonight within a reasonable amount of time. So I'm sure they have a limited number. Maybe it's like a 3-minute mic, but again, that's my guess. And so they have a representative. Well, Trump and all the candidates, they can show up and represent themselves at, so he's going to be at one of these little precincts, I'm sure, to share whatever time they give their candidates. So that's so much fun. I mean, it just feels like something I want to be part of that. I wish we did that here. And I mean, everybody's watching the votes. So it's not like you can do a lot of cheating. And then of those, whoever wins, the percentages are the number of electorates they get sent to the convention. Now, for a big deal, it's a big deal. Everyone's watching Iowa. I was watching on X, and they said people were going crazy because at the MSM mainstream media, they weren't doing a lot of information. Nobody could figure this thing out. Like, where do we find out who's winning? What's going on? And I think basically a lot of people didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand. It doesn't even start till 7:00. I was thinking it was like 8 to 8, like voting day, but it's not. It's a gathering. And the entire number of delegates all of Iowa get to send to the national committee are 40. They have 40 delegates. So it's really quite interesting. I don't know how exactly they divide that up.
So is winner take all, or is it a percentage?
I don't know.
Yeah, each state's different. Some states will give you the percentage of the amount of delegates. As you can see here, here's a picture of President Trump looking at the scores. It looks like he's got, at this point, 57.4%. Nikki Haley had 18.5%.
Ooh, that's higher
and then DeSantis had 15.7%.
That might have been my latest, not to contradict, shows DeSantis at 20.7%. And Haley third place at 19%. So
I like that better.
Like I know.
It must be true.
Like he edged. If I believe, well, hey, this is CNN again. I mean, hey, who knows? CNN's anyways. So they have DeSantis slightly ahead of her. So
yeah, that was a snapshot in time too. It was, I found that on Truth as we were talking. That was the latest.
Yeah, the polls said they thought Trump would be 48, and it sounds like right now he's like at 51. Haley would be number 2 at 20, and DeSantis at 16, and then Vivek at 8, Hutchison at 1, Binkley at 1, and then everybody else 2% of whomever.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Yep.
So nationally, Trump is right now polling at 69% in the GOP. So Iowa would be less than the national percentage. So what I found interesting also on CNN is that as the day went on and the caucuses were coming close, there was a news they were on TV saying, we don't think people should be out in the weather tonight. And what they said was, they came on with this newsflash, record-breaking cold. And it is cold there. I think one newscaster said it's -7. No, it was 17 degrees there, which I found very funny.
17.
That it was 17. But the news said, it was so dramatic. The anchor said, it's cold, but it's not just cold. It's painful and dangerous in the rural counties where the roads don't get plowed very much. You drive in a ditch and your car isn't coming out. Your battery might be dead, so maybe the cold weather would produce a surprise tonight. We think people shouldn't go out. And that's what they said on the newscast.
Could that be voter suppression? I don't know.
I mean, these guys in Iowa, they know what cold is. They know how to drive in the ice and the snow. I mean, they could get there on their skis if they needed to. And I don't think the cold is going to keep anybody out, especially those Trump supporters. Last night, they had the rally for Trump, and they had a big long line. And the rally organizers, they brought in all these buses that were heated so that the people in line could get into the buses and get warm, because they were concerned that it was cold, but they weren't, because they wouldn't leave. And they got there early because they were very excited about their favorite candidate. So
wow, what a message! What a message to the rest of the states. How important it is to them to vote.
Now you were, I don't know, Nikki Haley, she was a supporter of the WEF. Did you know that today the WEF is meeting in Davos, Switzerland?
Whilst every single farmer and tractor and piece of equipment is in downtown Berlin and all across Europe, the farmers are rallying. I think that is so fun. I mean, I loved when last year, whenever it was in Canada, the truckers
convoy.
I ate that up. And they're like playing ice hockey in the streets and stuff. But what's going on in Europe dwarfs those Canadians. It's so crazy. I encourage everyone to go and look that up, because of course, mainstream news is not covering one iota. And I think and it's growing and it's not stopping. And it's been days now. Has it been a week or longer or whatever? And they
Crickets
know that
from
it's
us, where's Germany?
Right. We'll talk about, and Europe's freezing too right now. And it's all the farmers and all their tractors out there. And I think that's a very interesting picture juxtaposition of the party of Davos, right? As Steve Bannon would say, in their elitist little enclave meeting to decide the world's fate. And they think that all of the farmers across Europe that are rallying to protect their way of life, to protect their countries and economy. There's the little peons. I don't know. I just think we have our crazy, crazy American story happening, but Europe's in the thick of it too. I mean, the whole world's blowing up, to be honest.
The whole world is waking up.
The Europeans are, I don't know, they're going, I don't know, it makes us look like a bunch of P words around here. Like, I should be out with my tractor somewhere.
One of the things I listened to an interview, and the German farmer looked right in the camera and he said, I know that the elite leaders of my nation hate us. And I thought, oh, he just said what I really, he actually articulated what I thought about members of our government. Like, they hate us. They hate what we think. They hate what we want. They hate our ideas. They hate our values. They hate our God. They hate us. And so when he said that, it pierced me, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's right. He understood And what he was fighting for is they're taking off the diesel tax break that the farmers would have had for their tractors and their ability to transport goods to the marketplace. And that is huge. It's the difference between, I mean, in Germany, there's still many small farms, just like there were in the Netherlands a few years ago. I don't know how that has ended in the Netherlands, but I do believe that they have awakened, not woke, but awakened in a good way in the Netherlands. But I know that you can't ignore when the farmers are saying we're not giving you our milk. What do you do when they pour it down the drain? They don't have to send that milk to market. They don't have to send their eggs to market, their chickens to market. I don't think they're probably have very much fruit and vegetables right now because it is wintertime. But the majority of the type of grassroots people are farm-like vineyard growers, those type. It affects every part of the chain of the food. And I think the leaders know that. So this
they do.
whole agenda 30, they just,
There we go.
yeah, it's time. I think it's waking people up.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And it's very encouraging. I think, as each part of the world does their part of waking up and waking up others, it encourages and inspires others to maybe step up themselves. Or like, look at all these farmers, that's a sacrifice of a day, and it takes money to get out there with the diesel, to get out somewhere well beyond your farm. You have to put it on a trailer. Or drive a long way with that. And so, it's not something a press of a button. It's a sacrifice, a day or a week to make that statement, And so you see that many people standing strong. It's inspiring, definitely inspiring. So I'm happy to see that.
Party of Davos going to cut off all of their bank accounts, freeze their
Yes.
assets.
And that should be a lesson to us. That should be a lesson to us because, they're wanting to press this digital dollar, digital currency. There's a lot of talk right now that we may have a financial collapse finally this year. They're saying this is the year, and I know I've heard that for years, but it does really seem like we're right there. So if that happens, and nobody can get a hold of their own money from their bank, whether it be a week or two, that fear generated will push people right into accepting a digital currency. And a digital currency will happen just like that farmer or those truckers. Once the government said, "Oh, we don't want you doing that," what did they do? They froze their accounts. They couldn't even get money to buy gas or food or anything. They shut all of their accounts. That is complete control. And so that was a preview. And hopefully the world will see that. And hopefully if they do press that digital currency as a solution, that story will go viral, saying, well, this is what'll happen if you go with the digital. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think too that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, even with having it on the same day as the caucus in the beginning of our elections, because our eyes are on Iowa. And if I hadn't just caught something on my news feed, I wouldn't have remembered that. Oh, this is Davos. Let's see who's attending. Who are the American globalists who are supporting these? And we can go on the Davos a website just like the Bilderberg, and they'll say who's there and who is negotiating on our behalf how to create poverty for us and how to take away our rights. And so it's important that we know what's going on there and we know what the issues and who are the leaders and who are doing the pushing. I know we know many of them, but when they come back here, I mean, Nikki Haley's been to Davos several times. Her name has been on the list. And so I know you're you have you mentioned you were a Vivek. You're kind of, you haven't have you thrown in your piece yet with Vivek? Because I know he had some on his Wikipedia. There were some things scrubbed off his Wikipedia, like the George Soros scholarship that he got. And then also, I just know some of his corporate dealings. A lot of his entrepreneurialism, a lot of his support was from BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, that pushed him into the billionaire status. So I'm still going, I'm not sure. I know Trump said a vote for Vivek is a vote for the other side, but he has a lot of interesting ideas, and he says things that are very articulate. What do you think?
Here's what I think. I think the American people need a good talking to. I think, like, in my vision, which is funny, it's like we're all a bunch of kindergartners running around, and we need someone with the, big guy pants on to say, sit down and shut up and let me talk to you clearly and succinctly, and lay things out in a sober and understandable way. Here's this issue that we're dealing with. Well, here's the two sides. Here's the law. Here's all the complexity. Here's why we struggled, blah, 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 blah. And be a calm voice of reason. And as much as I love Trump, and something that sticks with me about Trump that a minute ago we were talking about, well, our leaders hate us, right? They all do hate us, except for Trump, who said, this was years ago in 2015, even early on, he said, I will take the arrows for you. They don't hate me, they hate you. He's saying that. And he says, but they're going to have to shoot at me and I will take the arrows. And I just absolutely love that. If I could, I'd paint it on my wall. And I love Trump. But he's got he's compromised by the people that are mentally ill because of him, not that he's done anything to them. And he has a hard time really succinctly explaining things. He speaks in sort of broad brushstrokes and kind of metaphors. And I think he's hilarious because he came from Queens. My mom grew up in Queens. Like, I feel like I speak the Queens Trump talk. Like, I can interpret what he's saying. All that aside, as genuine and amazing as the Trump he is in the movement and his years in office, all that great stuff, I have been asking myself, who is it that can calmly and clearly give the country a talking to and not continue to have all the talking and the rhetoric that everybody's panties in a bunch over. So I don't know. I want to try that on for size. And I'll end with this though, because it's such a phenomenon. Somebody said to Vivek, and I call him Vivek, at one of his Iowa meet and greets, somebody stood up and he's like, I absolutely love what you're saying. Really resonates. And I think Vivek attracts a lot of young people as well, who are like, oh my gosh, that option is 80 whatever, and that option's all over the hill too. And I'm a young 30-something millennial who represents me, kind of a thing. And I think that Vivek, this is an aside, captures that percentage of America that's up and coming, that want a younger representative of sort of their generation. Okay, but that's an aside. So this guy gets up, a young man at one of Vivek's events, and says, I love you and I love what you're saying, but I feel like a vote for you is saying that I condone what the left has been doing for Trump. He's essentially saying, I feel like I have to vote for Trump to tell everyone else that I don't approve or agree with all the indictments, all this court stuff, right? The way that they've been treating Trump, which is absolutely egregious. And he's saying, well, how do I reconcile these two things? I don't want to ditch Trump and my support for him and my disdain for the way that he's being treated, but I actually kind of like, this other option. And I just thought, well, gosh, that's me in a darn nutshell. It's a real conflict. I want to throw 100% of my effort and trust and goodwill towards Trump. But on the other hand, I think there's a couple of other pathways that I could maybe see that could benefit the country. We'll leave it at that. Anyways, it's an interesting, very multivariable situation we're all dealing with.
It is. I know when I first heard Vivek, I was really, really impressed. Because he was saying all the things I wanted to hear, saying all the things that I felt like President Trump was saying already. And here's just my 2 cents on it. I feel like it's the hand of God using Vivek. So Trump's not at any of those debates, but there is a Trump spokesman. And he's not necessarily speaking for Trump, but he's speaking those ideas. And if those ideas are not presented against the others that are all debating each other, all of a sudden their ideas seem to be like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then all of a sudden Vivek comes and says, all those ideas are absolutely stupid. And here's the reason why. And he is him, Carrie Lake, and Donald Trump. This is what I've heard. Those are the 3 best articulate people, and probably even more Carrie Lake and Vivek. They are very articulate. And so basically you are getting a Trump idea and comparing it to the debates where Trump doesn't have to defend himself. If he showed up, it'd be all, let's attack Trump. Let's try. So he's out of it. No one attacks Trump. And then Vivek speaks the things that Trump is trying to do. And so I feel like that's a divine hand of God. Also, I'm very strong into Kim Clement. I don't know if you ever heard of him, Kim Clement and his prophecies. But there is a Christian worship leader who gets words of knowledge and visions and stuff. And he had prophesied back in 2007, I think, early as 2007, 2014, that Trump would be a president. He'd be a president for two terms. He would build the wall around the country, a bunch of other things, and that the people would be fooled. The people would say, oh, his blood's too hot. And God would say, I know his blood is hot, but I've chosen him for this. And then he has another vision where it's like there was an evil plan in the midst and the wall wasn't finished, and it really, you could see it in him and all that stuff. But it will be, or at least, it was in the middle of the plan. And so I feel like it's just divine destiny that he will actually be president the second term. Especially if you remember that, Chris, the one with Clark, he says, he had a vision. He says, and this was back in 2014. He's like, there's a Donald and a Mr. Clark, and you're sitting together and you're watching me right now. And you're asking, is this for me? And this is for you. And you will get that election, or you will win that election. Well, they didn't even meet each other till about a year and a half ago. Clay Clark with the Reawaken America tour, and Clay Clark went over to the I guess Mar-a-Lago, and they sat together on the couch and watched that video together. So there was a Donald and a Mr. Clark, and they both were watching. And he says, "You will win that election." And so it couldn't have been 2016, couldn't have been 2020. And so just with the things like that, I just, and that's, he's not a one topic, what you call prophet or a person that operates. I mean, he talked about lots of things, 9/11. In fact, when 9/11 happened, the FBI raided his house. How did you know, how did you know with such detail? He said, well, the Lord told me, but, so anyway, I'm kind of hanging on those things. And so I'm hoping, but Vivek, I do have a deep respect for. I think God will use him. I think he's saying the right things, and we'll see what happens. I hope he's actually part of the cabinet, but who knows?
I love how, like, on Twitter or X, people they already have their picks for Trump's cabinet in all the different offices. And it's like a game. It's like a parlor game kind of a thing. Like, well, who would you put as Secretary of State? And Ben Carson here and Carrie Lake here. And anyways, somebody for Attorney General. Anyways, that is fun. The dream team that we all just would make us very happy.
Cash Patel.
Right. All of your favorites are in there somewhere, but I don't know. It's I think having said everything, everything that's been said tonight, everything that rolls around in our heads all the time, I think they will stop at nothing to keep him from the White House. So that's like the fear that I walk around with is I'm not sure we've seen the last of them. They've got a lot more tricks up their sleeve, short of just calling the election, just curtailing it. What's his face Zelensky in Ukraine canceled their elections the other month. Well, geez, it's wartime. You can't have an election. Who's to say over the summer there's not instigated riots and the country is declared to be at civil war? And sorry, people, no election for you. I just pray that my worst little fears and my crazy fantasies are not true. But I think as I wouldn't put anything past these people who are so jealously guarding their power.
Wicked.
And wicked. I'm sure they have some tricks up their sleeves that and Vivek does echo this too, where he has said, oh, right, we're going to roll into November and they're going to pull something because Trump's on the ballot and they're going to stop at nothing to keep him out of the White House. And we're all going to be kicking ourselves in December going, gee, we never thought that they would have really ramped up and pulled something else off. I feel like there's a certain amount of sober thought that needs to be put into the precarious situation we might find ourselves in. And everyone's like, well, gee, I didn't think they had it in them. Well,
yeah, I think we have been talking about this is a zero-sum game, and that if the deep state is as evil as we think they are, they won't stop at anything. But these kind of discussions, I think it's really important that we have them now. And it's not okay. We run around like a chicken with a head cut off. Oh no, there's nothing we can do. Oh no, this is the time we think about. How are we going to say no? How do we nonviolently push back and say that is not going to happen on our watch? And so, I mean, I don't know. There are many times that I know there's prayer, and prayer does change things. There are things at the local level. There's things through the Republican Party. There's things that you can start beginning to have discussions, even talking to lawyers. What can we do? What sort of, we're not helpless as people. And if there really are tens of millions of Americans who say no, what would that look like when there are a few people manipulating machines and manipulating situations? It is scary, but I think if we begin, I love that you're bringing it up now, because we need to start talking about this, because something is going to happen. I have felt like the other shoe's going to drop any day. What is it? Is it going to be the economy? Are they going to pour some other pathogen on us? And
disease X, that's coming.
Yeah, disease X. Soon. I mean, are we going to have little aliens projected on us? Are they going to use a directed energy weapon to create a volcano and Yellowstone?
All good ideas. All great ideas.
Keep another tsunami and. Are they going to open up the Canadian border? So we're not the Canadians want to come to America.
The illegal aliens up to Canada.
Well, the projection that some think is, that recent film that came out, Leave the World Behind, and that was produced by the Obamas, and it talked about a total blackout. The power grid was taken down, and it ended with, it looked like what was probably nuclear bombs being dropped on the major city just outside of where this film, or this show was taking place. But, they all loss of communication. And that a lot of people have been talking about some sort of
internet shutdown.
to
Mhm.
control the narrative. And so, I found that very distressing. I mean, I watched the movie. It was very interesting, but the fact that you had a former president and first whatever, they make this type of movie where America's taken over,
That was
terrorists take over. It
that
was
was
very
very
dark.
telling, wasn't it? But you
Mm.
watched it, Ron.
Oh, I did. I definitely did. It was it was interesting. I was very curious to say, what, because I felt like, is this a projection of what they plan to do? Because even the Davos crew was saying, there will definitely be in the next year or so a cyber attack there, and so we need to prepare it. Well, they said that about COVID. There definitely is going to be a pandemic or and so what had happened? Literally 2 months or 3 months after, it was already on the radar happening.
Mhm.
So when they said it's going to happen, it's like it already started. When was that anyway? Was that in October or
It was,
November?
the gaming of it?
Event
Um,
201, you
the
mean?
meeting, yeah. When was the? Well, yeah, I guess
That
maybe it
was
was Event
October of
201.
2019.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and so it's like they announce these things. It'd be actually very interesting to see what is covered in Davos this year as they
Mhm.
start talking about their quote concerns, and I always love the interviews. They're, people are so in their face now with interviews, mocking them like, well, so tell us how, obviously you guys came in your luxurious jets, wasting fuel from your, $1 billion beach houses, but tell us, what did you do for us little people? And then all of a sudden, Klaus Schwab is getting harassed by these people that are just completely awakened to their schemes, so what depopulation plan are you doing for us, or to us? And anyway, I look forward to seeing what comes out of the next week or so of this meeting over in Davos.
Yeah, and just as we're winding down too, I just want to remind people we're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s um, holiday birthday today. I don't know that it's his birthday because we seem in the Gregorian calendar, we seem to make holidays convenient to whatever to Davos, evidently, and the World Economic Forum and other things. But I think his birthday is around the 20th of um, January. But he died at 39 years of age, and I just wanted to read his last words, just kind of as he'd be 95 today. And I actually was living in Washington, D.C. as a little girl when he was shot. He was assassinated on a balcony in a hotel room. And the last words, he's about to go to a meeting. And the last words he spoke to a longtime friend, and it was his musician friend, Ben Branch, who he would play and sing at his meetings. There's a real gospel tone to his gatherings. And he said, right before he went out on the balcony, he said, Ben, make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord in the meeting tonight, and play it real pretty. And then he went out on the balcony and he was shot. And the rest is history. And we know that you were going to share. Obviously, we know there's revisionist history about Martin Luther King Jr., that everything he did was not stellar. But we also know he lived in a time that was very cruel to the Black man in the South. And he stood up with a voice and with courage, much like Donald Trump does, against all odds, with a great pay. There's a great cost to his life and his family's life
Mhm.
in order to create an atmosphere of hope. A lot of his was being willing to be at the point of the spear, knowing that he may never see the manifestation of what he was hoping for.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to acknowledge that today is his designated birthday on our calendar. And we're talking about freedom situations, his great dream speech, I have a dream, on the Mall of Washington, D.C., in front of Abraham Lincoln, on the Lincoln Memorial steps. I've walked those steps. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I've sat on those steps many times and looked down across to the reflection pool and the Washington Monument across the mall. And I can visualize the hundreds of thousands of people that marched on Washington, very much like January 6th, to support something that they believed in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what you had alluded to or mentioned, some of the things that, a lot of times what we do is we put somebody high on an altar, and they could do no wrong, and we are human, and we have flaws, and I think Charlie Kirk covers it quite well in his meeting, The Myth of MLK, where he has a person, Vince Everett Ellison, really does a deep dive on the things, but. I'll put that in our show notes if people are interested in going down that. I'm not really wanting to push it. I know my wife was born the very morning that he was shot. So it's very interesting. And I always think of that U2 song. There's a phrase, early morning, April 4, shot rings out in the Memphis sky, in the name of love. And so, but I can relate to the main message that Martin Luther King Jr. is known for, and that is, people should be judged on their character and not on the color of their skin. And so, sometimes when you do these quotas and things like that, you're judging people, I think, on their skin rather than the content of whatever their grades are or whatever it is, for the job or the school position. And I get it. Some people are disadvantaged, but people have risen and they do rise, and so I'll honor those. As we're closing, I think, Kristen, is there anything you'd like to share? I mean, we want to put you out there as far as the Mama Bears Radio, and amazing, the time and how they can hear you if they want to hear live, maybe it's on KSCO, the website, and what time. So feel free to share that as we start to close.
It's been super fun to join you guys. And I think, as I said at the beginning, when we pool our voices together and collaborate, I think it amplifies the message. And I've really enjoyed getting to know all the patriots in our area, all the Freedom Friends. It's such a catch-22 kind of thing because we were in really rough times. But the people that I've met and the energy that surrounds our time. And let me just back up for just a minute, though. Speaking of MLK and tough times in American history, the country has had our share. And as I've matured over the last few years in evaluating where America's at and what does freedom really mean to me, and what, like we said earlier, what kind of a country are we going to bequeath our children, our posterity? I've found it so instructive to read American history and kind of put me in my place where I'm like, oh no, all the crazy things are happening in my time. Well, that's not true. And in MLK's time, the country was an upheaval. Yeah. And we have rough strife so that we learn our lessons and grow, ideally. Yeah. So I have hope for this crazy time we live in, that we're going to grow in faith in ourselves and faith in God and faith in the nation in the future and all those good things. So towards that end, though, it wouldn't be, worth it in the least if we weren't all working together. So I appreciate you guys so much. My show is Mama Bears Radio. It airs live at 3 p.m. on KSCO. That's AM 1080, KSCO in Santa Cruz. It's also streaming on the KSCO website, soon to be streaming other places too, as my friends here are teaching me tech. And then it's also available on podcasts, wherever you get a podcast, Spotify. Search Mama Bears Radio Show. And my website is Mama Bears Radio. That's MAMA, Bears, plural, mamabearsradio.com. You guys can find me there. So we'll have to do this again, and you guys get to come on live broadcast radio at some point. We'll
that'd be lovely.
Have you guys back on KSCO. I'm sure you miss your live radio.
We do. We definitely miss the live radio. We're just glad to have you as our guest. It was an honor. And thanks for watching. We look forward to another week. Next week, we will see you at the same time with Awake the Bear Radio.
Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.